All right, thank you so much, Lindsay. And thank you, everyone, members and guests. Welcome to the Joint Judicial Retention Committee, our final meeting of the session, I believe. So I'll call the meeting to order at 5:05. And we will start tonight with a conversation with Judge Mann. So I'll invite you to our interestingly aligned witness seat. And I think, as with all of our testimony, I will ask you before we proceed to swear that, I think I have it memorized by now, but I don't want to get anything wrong. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalty of perjury, or so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. All right, so I know that we are sort of probably fairly briefly discuss a letter that you've written. I won't characterize it, I won't add adjectives, but I'll let you do that for us. And
I think it speaks for itself. I'm happy to ask and answer any questions that people may have. Worked to identify what resources could be available to continue to improve. I think it sets that out in terms of what's available, what I can take advantage of, and then we see how that process unfolds.
Do we have a copy of it? Where is it?
yeah, I'm not
I believe
sure.
Eric sent it to us.
Yeah, it was emailed.
Today?
No, this was sent March 10th.
Yeah, last week.
So I'll give some time to question. I'll wait. Maybe I won't wait. Everyone, I have a couple questions, but I just want to make sure, does everyone?
I'm seeing it.
Okay.
I didn't get it. I don't remember getting it.
Okay. That's an important bit of information.
But we can make it for copies. Or I can email it.
The 20th?
I think it was the 10th.
March 10th.
March 10th?
Yep.
We haven't quite gotten to the 20th yet, I hope.
I know, I thought they meant, yeah, I definitely did not.
Well, you want
I'm not
to-
saying-
A copy if you want to make copies.
All right.
I will need it back there if I need to answer any questions about it, but,
Attachments.
oh, you know what? There are attachments and I do have those too. I think, yes, I do.
Did you get it yet, John?
Yes.
It might have come from Jesse.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
So it was never shared with the rest of the community. Sorry.
On us.
Need a hard copy. Never mind. Yeah.
Well, it's a one-page letter.
Yeah,
Well, maybe we can, I don't want to, sorry for the delay.
That's okay.
Ask questions before everyone's had a chance to follow up. I wonder, though, if you could say a little bit more about what you found. I mean, the attachments explain what you've discovered, what's out there, what's possible.
So I think the most readily available and useful piece is the retired judge review process. There has been a developed form set of criteria for them to use, but my process is going to be supplemented by providing the retired judge with all of the comments that you've seen here and that prompted the request. So certainly that would be something the retired judge would be looking for. They then have a form to complete. I don't actually have that form, but they have some kind of form they complete every time they do this. And then all of their comments are shared with me, and I'm able to talk with them and say, tell me more. We can put it in context, which I think is really helpful. And since all of our hearings are always recorded, you can go back, you can listen to it, you can see things. You can't see things, you can hear things. We don't video them. But you have that context, which I think is a really important and different component than the sort of out of context, unknown comment. And so creates a real platform for direct response. And obviously, if you're working with a retired judge who has a lot of experience, you can identify ways that they would necessarily address things or maybe change things or whatever that is. And then there's also something really concrete to speak more with other people about if there are ongoing questions or concerns. So I think that is, the most on point piece. In terms of trainings, I started with the National Judicial College, which is our primary resource for trainings. And I was able to find some in the past, but nothing in the current year. And they sort of don't plan multi-years ahead. My expectation is that maybe those kinds of things will reoccur in coming years. There is also a training that's going to be part of the Vermont Judicial College this year that seems like it will be on point and helpful. There is also research that I've done. I haven't found much yet, but thinking in terms of outside of the box of training options, looking at some of the larger state judicial organizations. So I think New York, maybe even Massachusetts, bigger states that might do their own internal trainings that might be available to join in. Haven't seen much yet, but still continuing to look for that. Look for online materials. And every time I think, oh, this sounds great, I kick into it and it would be like from Australia or Canada or something really not entirely on point, but I'll keep looking. We'll see what's out there. But I think you've got certainly the Vermont program that's being offered this year, and there may be some other things that come along. No, I just really wasn't able to identify a lot in that area. There's also the opportunity to observe others and see what they're doing differently. And so I think that's sort of the sum of what's available. If somebody has another idea, all ears.
Well, thank you for that sort of rundown or a summary of what you've found. And it is interesting to me that just as you're talking and as I was reading your letter and hearing that it's maybe not the easiest thing to find, for a judge who is seeking to improve their craft, as it were, to find those outlets. So I appreciate the work that you've done just in looking into it. And it seems like a retired judge who's had the experience of observing and offering feedback could be really valuable for everyone.
I think another component of that is they're able to pull hearings. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a hearing next week or a month. It could be hearings from the past to just get a kind of over time viewpoint and review those and comment on them. And also the idea that, you're not given notice of, oh, on Tuesday, this person's going to be observing you. So when they show up, they're really getting you as you would be.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Thank you, Senator. So, Your Honor, you mentioned in the letter bench skills, and based on some of the comments that were in our binders, could you give us a little bit of an idea about which particular bench skills might be helpful for you to sort of work on? And there's a whole bunch of them. I can give you a list, but.
Well, the challenge is that you don't know what particular hearing or thing from my perspective prompted the comment. So I've done a lot of, soul searching and talking with clerks who are in the courtrooms to try to dig this up, right? Because you can't fix it entirely unless you know the whole piece. So when someone said that, when you've been yelled at by Judge Mann, I'm thinking, I can't remember yelling at anybody. I mean, I sometimes will use my mom voice, which is, look, we've got to fix this. This can't happen, certainly a lot more forceful voice. But in terms of yelling, I couldn't come up with anything. And that's something I think I would remember. I can say that we've had people on WebEx where I've raised my voice because they keep talking over one another. And I think I don't even do that anymore because maybe, I don't know, 6 to 8 months into the WebEx process, somebody told me that when you're on the WebEx and you don't have video, you're oftentimes the speakers that people are using, when they're speaking, mute out everybody else. So they don't even know that other people are speaking. So even if I'm trying to get their attention, they can't hear me. So a really frustrating sort of learning curve with WebEx. But that would be the closest that I was able to come up with on my own for yelling. So then I went to all the different clerks that I remembered being in the courtroom and saying, can you think of, any times, do you hear me yell at people? And I didn't get anything there. So maybe somebody else watching me can identify that I raise my voice or something. That I don't know. I really would like to hear that. The other thing that I thought long and hard about was this, she glares at attorneys and witnesses. That's disturbing to me. And I don't know if this is true, but the only thing, and honestly, it surprised me because one of the things I expected to get as a comment was that I look at screens too much and not at people in the courtroom. Because I think some of what we heard already is that I take copious notes. So I'm constantly, my notes are like a transcript of the hearing. And so I really expected that. So maybe, I don't know, a week or two ago, I'm driving in and it dawns on me. I think I know where the glare comment comes from. That is when I've heard something 6 times in the same hearing, I stop typing. And what do I do when I stop typing? I don't look at my email. I don't work the queue. I look at the attorney who's speaking. And so now they've sort of got my undivided attention. I'm watching them. And that might feel like a glare, especially in the contrast of always looking at the screens and the keyboard and everything else. So, there's an easy way to fix that, right? I just keep typing no matter what you're saying. I could do that. That's an easy fix. But in some ways, I'm not sure that that's the best solution because I also tell people in bench bar meetings, if I stop typing, that's a really good indicator that maybe your point's been made. And so I feel sort of dishonest if I keep typing. Now I could stop telling people that that's what I do. But if I were a lawyer, I would want to know if the judge feels like we're kind of hashing the same material over and over and over again. So, those are things that I think will be really helpful to talk with other judges about, to get different ideas. I've already done that. I don't know that I've gotten really the answer yet, but I think it's something worth exploring. I'd love for somebody who's sitting in the courtroom to tell me, yep, you look like you're glaring at people. It's possible I give them a harsher look than I realize I do. It's just really hard from this angle to know what it looks like. I never look at myself. Well, I guess on video, I unfortunately have to, but I don't see that. And so that's where I think that objective viewer comes in as really, really important. What do I look like from their perspective? Because it's not what I see. It may not at all be what I intend, but by getting their viewpoint from another place in the courtroom, you might get a lot of that. That comment too, I'd love to see what somebody thinks of in terms of looking at witnesses. The honest to God truth is I can't see the witness most of the time because I'm short. So I can't see over the video screens, and the witness box is usually positioned it's always off to the side. But in many of the courtrooms I'm in, it's also a little forward of the judge's bench. So I'm looking at the back of their head or the side of them, and between that and my notes, can't imagine. And I almost always thank the witnesses for coming in. So I don't know. And again, so that's why it's really important to get some other viewpoints of what people are seeing, because I know what I'm trying to do. So I don't know if that answers your question fully.
And I appreciate your admitting that there are ways to get better. I think it's an excellent idea to have sort of that third-party objective person without any knowledge of who it's going to be or what time or anything else ahead of time, to just be able to come in and observe. I mean, that a lot of people speak with their hands, and many maybe don't realize kind of the way they look when they do that.
Yep.
So I think you've identified maybe, temperament and that sort of thing, that you realize that somebody that's off to the side could say, you know what, if you tried this a little bit more, and it could make a huge difference. I've always found that smiling helps too. It sort of puts people at ease.
Yeah, and that's a tough line, honestly.
Yeah.
Because if you smile too much in the courtroom, people think you're not taking their case seriously,
Point taken.
or it's too light. And so I think there's a real fine line between how much of a smile do you let out.
Yeah.
You don't want to frown at people, but it's a serious matter that brings you to court. It's very rare that it's, hey, we're all here for fun, right?
Very true.
So it's really tough. And I do think I greet people when they come in. I don't say welcome to the courtroom, but I usually say good morning, good afternoon, something like that, and try to be light in that respect, and usually thank people for being there for the hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Mann. I think this sounds like a great plan. It sounds like you have good resources. I think having a retired judge come in and observe, and there may be things like just rearranging things in the courtroom that might help. I thought your observation about where the witness box is, et cetera, those are really good things that are sort of beyond your control. But you could also ask for adjustments in how things are set up too. That might be helpful. And the other day I was watching a witness in in one of my committees, and there was a reporter in the room taking photos that then you probably all saw in final reading. And I am literally glaring at this witness, and people shared it all over the place. And I was like, I'm just listening intently. I'm not needing to glare at the person. But that's what it looks like. And so I think sometimes a lot of it is totally unintentional, and you don't know until you see the visual of it. And I was like, oh, so I have been trying really hard, Senator Williams, you can tell me, to be happy and like smile at the witnesses, which is a little ridiculous, I have to say. And I just want to reiterate something that I think Senator Gulick brought up in the original hearing with you, is that so many of these things are probably gendered as well. That, women's voices are policed a lot more than men's voices, and women's faces, and we are just, the way that we interact with people are policed a lot more than men. So I appreciate that you identified some things, and took this seriously, and I really do hope that it's helpful to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming and sharing this letter with us. I just want to say, from my perspective, I want you to be a good judge, and I don't want you to have to be inauthentic and smiley and sweet, and that is not your job. I know you have to make people in the courtroom feel comfortable. I get that, but thank you for being a good judge. That is what's important. And we don't ask men to smile. I mean, it kind of irks me that we ask women to smile all the time. So I appreciate this. I think it's our job on this committee to look at the aggregate of all of the comments and tease out, what's really happening here, because people come into that courtroom with a variety of emotions and experiences. Maybe they've had a bad day. We don't know. So it's important that we look at all of it. And again, I just want to say thank you for being a good judge. That is what's critical.
Thanks so much, Judge. Just a real quick question, and I appreciate you taking the initiative. I think you're on the right track here. The process itself, I was confused with the retired judge observing, you mentioned like watching video.
Not
They
video.
will be there in person for at least the one observation?
Well, my impression, I mean, I suppose it's up to the person that does it, but I would assume that there may be opportunities to join WebEx if we're having a remote hearing. But I expect that they'll also be present in the courtroom, because that
See
can
the
always
judge now
happen.
behind you, so.
Yeah, I mean, I
That's
think,
great, because I think it's just a different flavor in person than online, so fantastic, yeah.
so, yeah.
Thanks so much.
Anyone else?
Well, also.
Thank you once again, Judge Mann,
Thank
for
you.
making the trip a second, third time, I think. We appreciate you being here, and as everyone said, appreciate the seriousness with which you approached this request and the results. And I think I try to look at this whole thing with a lot of empathy, and it's never easy for any of us to receive criticism or feedback, but it's what you do with it that ends up mattering. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So we have one additional, well, I guess to combine two agenda items. And so at this time, I would entertain a motion to that the committee go into executive session to consider the evaluation and retention of the 7 superior judges and 1 magistrate up for retention this year.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?